Welcome to Wife University. This is Herman Franck. I'm an attorney, I'm an author, and I am the creator of Wife University. You can see more about Wife University at my website, www.wifeuniversity.com. Wife University is based on a series of books I wrote about marriage, midlife crisis, east-west marriage, and my latest, Good Mom, Bad Wife. I also have a book called Relationship Agreement. I'm a believer in agreements within marriages so that people can understand what it is they expect and want of the other, and hopefully reach agreements to important items so they avoid problems. You may wonder what I want and what I hope to achieve with Wife University. First of all, let me say that Wife University is a place where women can go to learn to be better wives so their marriages and families stay together forever. That is my mission statement. I want you to get married, which is the subject of my book called East-West Marriage. East-West Marriage is largely a book about how to connect specifically within an Asian to USA or Western man marriage. And if you're wondering why I focused on that, it's because we writers live by a simple rule: write what you know about. I was married to a woman from Shenzhen, China, mainland China, for 14 years. We have 3 half Chinese, half white children. That is what I know about. That is what I wrote about. I would hope that the lessons of that marriage would actually apply to any marriage. I'm not positive they will, but I can tell you my orientation toward East-West marriages, and that's why I wrote that book called East-West Marriage. What I want is for your marriage to hold together. I want you to succeed in your marriage. I want you to have a happy family all together. And I want to hopefully give you some guidance and some rules about how to do that. That's what Wife University hopes to achieve. Now you may wonder, how am I going to do that? How to go forward with that kind of program? I believe in the power of story. You know, when you go to a movie, you see a movie about some event, and you take something away from that event. Hopefully there's a lesson. You walk away from that movie thinking, wow, that was really amazing. Something I do a lot with my kids when we go see a movie. After the movie's done, I'll ask them 2 questions. Number 1, what was your favorite part of that movie? And I'm always amazed how they get right to the very point where the main actors learned a big lesson. There's a phrase we writers use for that point, and it's called character arc. You know, arc is like an architectural idea something that goes up, over, and down. Character arc is a concept where a person starts a journey in a story, and that journey leads him to a lesson. He learns something. A lot of times we can be, kind of bad people and maybe have some bad ideas. And then some big event happens in our life, and we study that event. It forces us to kind of look at who we are and what we are. And when it's all done, we have a lesson. We learn something. And we call that character arc, that process in the journey of the story where the main actor learns a big lesson, and usually in a good way. Often it's a case of, I was wrong, now I get it. And in a way, if you think about it, wouldn't this be the ultimate thing for a person to tell you, in a marriage? You're right, I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I'll change. Well, that's what we mean with character arc. It's someone saying just that. You're right, I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I'll change. There are a lot of people that say, well, people can't change, and there's probably a lot of truth to that. But people can definitely learn lessons, and those lessons can cause them to change their behavior. The person may not change. He or she will be the same person, but you can learn a big lesson from an event and then hopefully not do that again, whatever it was. So my method of Wife University is going to be based on the power of story, the concept of character arc, the idea that through events in these stories and the journey of the story, there are lessons to be learned, and that these lessons can teach us how to do things better. The story I'm going to tell you is my story. It's another thing that writers do. We naturally will tell our story if we have a story to tell. And let me guarantee you, I have a story to tell. I'm going to tell you the story about Good Mom, Bad Wife. It's a story about my marriage to a Chinese woman. By the way, let me tell you, she asked me not to use her name, and I'm going to honor that. I refer to her in my book as Girl Number One. Her name that I've given her is Pocahontas. You may or may not know the story of Pocahontas, but it's a very interesting story about a Native American woman that happened long ago in our history. Well, keep in mind, long ago in standards of USA means in the 1600s. But she actually had a relationship with an Englishman, so it's a little bit of an East-West relationship. And her father, he was the chief, kind of like the emperor or the king of the tribe, decided he would kill this Englishman. He was a captain of a ship that had come over from England. And she actually put her body over his body before her father tried to murder him. And of course, her father would not do that and did not kill him. And she actually saved his life. Later, there's a very interesting story about how Pocahontas ended up going to England. She was a beautiful young Native American woman, You may or may not know that there's a theory that the Native Americans of the United States actually came over from the Bering Strait, way up by Alaska, from China, from Asia. People still don't know if it's true or not, but supposedly like 15,000 years ago, they came over. If that is true, then Pocahontas was actually a Chinese girl who ended up marrying, actually saving the life of an Englishman, marrying that Englishman, and then going off to England with him. So when my wife told me, please don't use my name, the first thing I thought of was, okay, I will certainly honor and respect that. And then I had to come up with a name to give her, and I came up with the name Pocahontas. In this story, Pocahontas is also referred to as girl number one. She is the woman that gave me a family. And I might add, as many women as I have known in my life, there's only one that gave me a family. And however awful our story may sound as you listen to it, I want you to know that I am still grateful for my marriage to her, because without that I would not have had that family. And I'm sure it's the most wonderful thing in my life. Unfortunately, as you'll hear the story, there were so many amazing problems between Pocahontas and I that our marriage failed. You're going to see that my story is about a man who married a beauty queen from China. I might add, one of my other books, which are part of the books of Wife University, one of them is called How to Marry and Keep a Supermodel. Pocahontas became a beauty queen. She's quite a lovely woman, and I might add is really sweet, kind, and lovely to everybody on planet Earth except me. So when you hear all the unfortunate situations that came up between us, I really want to say at the outset, she's not a bad person. We were just a mismatch. And with the right guy, I guarantee it, she could be a wonderful husband. Wonderful wife. And, wonderful mom, wonderful everything. She's just with the wrong guy, me. And it's not really a question of, well, that's my fault for being the wrong guy. I don't really think it's a question of fault. And part of my lessons I want to teach about being a good wife, a lot of it begins with make sure you marry the right guy. Rule number one of Wife University, which I will state right here and now, never marry a man you don't love. This was the biggest problem that happened with Pocahontas and I. A lot of people marry for different reasons. Sometimes your parents may force you into a marriage. Sometimes peer group pressure. I know a lot of cases like this where, I'll give you an example. A woman has a group of 5 friends, and all 5 of them get married, and she's the only one that doesn't. And she feels really kind of odd about that, like, oh God, I'm not getting married, everyone else is married, what am I going to do? So she marries a guy, and the guy isn't really her soulmate, isn't really the right guy for her, but her attitude is, I don't care. I want to get married. Well, unfortunately, that can lead to a total disaster. So, I just say that with Pocahontas, as you hear all these terrible stories, please don't think that she is an awful woman. She's actually a very good woman. She's a very beautiful woman, a very talented woman. She's a dancer. And when I say a dancer, I mean a lot of girls can dance, but she's like a professional level, traditional Chinese folk dancer of the sort that when she did the dance team here, when I say here, I mean Sacramento, California, when the curtain opened, she was the prima dancer right out front. She's also a beauty queen. She became Mrs. Asia Sacramento. She became Mrs. Asia California. She's talented in many ways, I can tell you. She's really good at piano, basically piano, dance, and calligraphy. So she's not, I just point that out to let you know she's not some kind of, we have a phrase in USA called airhead. And sometimes really beautiful women are unfortunately really stupid. But her dad was an architect, really super smart guy. Her mom was an accountant, really super smart lady. Her family, her ancestry there includes, you know, people who have been doctors, engineers, all kinds of really smart people. So she's got a good brain. She has a personality type, unfortunately, that with me, we were just a total mismatch. So when I get into this story, I just want to remind you, the problem isn't that she is some terrible person or that I am some terrible person. The problem is that we were just terrible together. And it's really part of my great lesson, and it's a simple one to understand with Wife University is, you know, be careful who you choose. If you choose the wrong person, you can never do it right. And no matter what you do, you can be the perfect wife to a guy, and it's just not going to work out. And it's not your fault for being who you are, and it's not his fault for being who he is. It's a problem that the two of you should not have married. So what I want to let you know is my methodology and the way I'm going to go forward on this is by the story of Pocahontas and I, a story which led to another woman after my marriage was over, and I refer to her as girl number 2. She also asked me not to use her name, which I respect and honor. So I'm going to call her Sophie, which has an amazing aspect in that, in so many ways, Sophie was just like Pocahontas. And I can tell you, part of the odd lesson of my story is how I actually did the exact same mistake 2 times. And, you know, shame on me for that. I don't know why I did that, but let me just tell you, that's what I did. And it's easy, it'll be easy for you as you hear it all to go, oh, come on, you know, how could you do this again? But I did it again. Some of the issues that apply with Pocahontas, where I'm still grateful to her for giving me a family, no matter how mismatched we were, that same concept in a different way also applies to Sophie. Because I'll tell you what, Sophie did something for me that I'm forever grateful for and indebted to her for. Even though we didn't work out, even though we were a mismatch, as you'll see in the story, she helped me get over and out of the spell of Pocahontas. Sophie saved me from her, So I like to say it this way. Girl number 2 saved me from girl number 1. Unfortunately, in the process, girl number 2, Sophie, became very much like girl number 1, Pocahontas. And my story is also a story about love addiction, about how to get over someone that you just helplessly are in love with. Love addiction is a hard thing to deal with. I can tell you a lot about it, and we'll get into that as I tell the story and the story unfolds. There's a third girl in the story I want to introduce to you right now. Now, she gave me permission to use her name, so I'm going to use her name. Her name is Sasha. Sasha is a young girl. I met her as she was literally just graduating from University of Southern China. And to give you an idea of her, I'm sure you all realize when you graduate from university, there's something called a graduation ceremony where everyone's out there in what we call their cap and gown. And there is something called a commencement speech, usually given by, some kind of famous person. I mean, we have a situation where our President Obama will actually be at a university giving a speech. But it may be some other, like a Nobel Prize winner, maybe some top Olympian or whatever, and they give an inspiring speech about how the future holds bright for you all and you can be what you want to be. Just put your mind to it and you can achieve your goal. Dream, live, achieve. Great words of wisdom like that. Well, also in a commencement speech, they will select a student to give a speech. I'm not exactly sure how that process works. I can tell you that I was almost that person at my university. My undergraduate degree is from UC Berkeley, and they almost made me that person. I might add, the person they selected was so boring, and I guarantee it I would have done a better job. But anyway, it was a woman who gave this long speech about environmental issues and went on and on and on, and we're like, great, clean up the world, whatever. But anyway, Sasha was selected to give the speech before the graduating class at University of Southern California. And I was really impressed with that because I realized whenever the faculty and the professors, sit around and think about whom should we select? I'm not sure what all goes into that decision. I don't know what their criteria are, but it must include a person who is inspiring, who is impressive, who has something really moving to say. And I might add, you have to realize they don't even know what she's going to say yet because they first selected her and then she wrote what she would say. I had the pleasure of working with Sasha on that speech. I don't want to take a millimeter away of it from her. She wrote it. I just kind of heard it. And I gave her some ideas about how to engage a crowd. And what I can tell you is that after the speech, and I wish I could have been there to hear it, I was with her on Skype the night before the speech. I was with her on Skype the morning of the speech, and I was with her on Skype after the speech. And I want to share with you something she told me about that was really cool. She told me, first of all, when she was done, she got a standing ovation. The entire graduating class stood up and clapped. And I don't know how many times in our whole life we get a standing ovation. It's a very rare event. And when it happens, of course, you'll never forget it. I don't know, I forgot to ask her how many people were there. But, you know, it was probably over 1,000. And it included the professors. The faculty also stood and clapped. But the part that I like even more is that after all that, she reported to me that quite a few young girls came up to her and told her, I want to be just like you. I want to be just like you. You know, I'll tell you, there's an interesting concept because Sabrina Pocahontas, as Mrs. Asia Sacramento and as Mrs. Asia California, one of her duties is to go around and give speeches, and she does it all the time. She gives speeches to young girls that inspire the young girls to grow up into good young women and to do good things in their life, like, you know, get college degrees, get good jobs and careers, get good marriages, be good wives, be good mothers, things like that. And I can tell you that she also gets a standing ovation every time. She's a great speaker. She has something to say. And when she says it, it connects with the girls. And interestingly, and there's a parallel here between Pocahontas and Sasha. The first is that when she speaks, that when the two of them spoke, they both got standing ovations. The second is that the girls came up to them. With Pocahontas, these are Asian women in Sacramento, usually younger girls, you know, somewhere around 25-ish or so. And they told her the following: I want to be just like you. I want to be just like you. And it's exactly the same thing they told Sasha after her speech. So just like I told you that there's a kind of parallel between girl number 2 and girl number 1, there's also a parallel between girl number 1 and girl number 3. Now the place where Sasha fits into this story is after I had the devastation of losing girl number 1, Sophie saved me and brought me out of that devastation and brought me into a new love that was really very wonderful until it ended. And when it ended, unfortunately for me, I was devastated again. I was in love with a woman who did not love me twice. And I met Sasha, and Sasha was the girl who saved me from Sophie. Sasha is girl number 3 who saved me from girl number 1. She's a young girl And I'll tell you one thing that's very different between girl number 1 and girl number 2 is that unlike them, this is one place where there's a big difference. Girl number 3, Sasha, did fall in love with me. Girl number 1 and girl number 2 never did. And I can tell you without a doubt, I will always be extremely grateful for Sasha for saving me from my devastation of losing Sophie, and for doing something that, even though girl number 1 gave me a family, one thing she did not do is love me. And as grateful as I am to girl number 2, she also did not love me. I should say it this way, she did love me in a kind of way that we know as platonic love, and I'll talk about that more in the story. What is platonic love, which is an unromantic, non-erotic, meaning non-sexual, non-physical love